Georgia and speak to the political strategist Fred Hicks. Fred, always a pleasure to see you. Unproven, but apparently Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, who is also pushing this story, Haitian migrants in Ohio are eating people's pets. What is going on?
That was not one of the finer moments of the debate tonight, although it did provide a little bit of a levity for Democrats. But laden in that is that there's a high level of xenophobia and a bit of racism, because you're talking about dark-skinned immigrants in America. And one of the things that we talk about a lot here is that we treat fair-skinned immigrants quite differently than we do darker-skinned immigrants. And so there's playing into this trope that Haitians are base individuals and that they are eating dogs and cats and therefore will, by extension, eat your children and be dangerous. Is just really another point of the racism that is implied and also overt in the Donald Trump campaign. And so that was a very interesting moment, one that I think we'll hear played over and over and over again in the next 24, 48 hours from the Harris campaign.
Give us an overall appreciation of what you were watching.
So I thought tonight was very interesting. As you alluded to, this had the potential to be a make or break night for Kamala Harris. I think that most people feel like she won, although it might be, so to speak, a technical knockout as opposed to an actual outright knockout. But she acquitted herself well, and she, I think, inspired her base of voters. I think that she also probably did really well with independents and undecideds. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the exit polls say, or the polls in focus groups in the next day or two. I think that Donald Trump did enough with his base to keep them going, and I think that this is going to remain a very tight race over the next couple of weeks. But this was a very important night, more important for Kamala Harris than it was for Donald Trump, because Donald Trump is a fairly known entity, and this was really Kamala Harris's introduction to much of the American public.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, both candidates, they have to find the right kind of phrases that are going to resonate, especially with their own supporters. And it was interesting that Donald Trump, what was it he called Harris? He said she's a radical left liberalist. And she, in return, said all the world's dictators want Trump to win, that Putin will eat him for lunch. So that's really addressing their own base. But in terms of people who might change their vote, isn't it more unlikely that people who support Trump would change their vote regardless of what he says?
I think that's absolutely correct. You know, the word of the night to me was weak. We heard both of them use it, but we heard Kamala Harris, I believe, use it significantly more often to describe Donald Trump than Donald Trump did about her. But that was the word of the night. And that says to me that they're polling on both sides, Democratic and Republican side, say that Americans must want a strong leader, because both candidates sought to frame the other one as weak. But Kamala Harris really used that term quite often, and she used it, I think, to frame him, but also to get under Donald Trump's skin to make him lose his composure, which she did several times this evening.
And in terms of Kamala Harris's strategy, how is she proceeding in terms of her relationship and being vice president to Joe Biden? Is she leaving him behind and saying, I'm going to be different to what's happened? Because Joe Biden, at the end of the day, domestically, he has support. He won the election.
Absolutely. So Joe Biden is still the president, and it's very clear to me that they are still working in concert. But he has made a very conscious, deliberate decision to step back in terms of being in front of the camera to allow her to move forward. But they've already started campaigning together. She did not contrast herself from him. In other words, she didn't say, oh, I disagree with President Biden on this, that, or the other. She sought to explain it and to frame it in a way that would make sense and be palpable to Americans. And so I think that we're going to see more of them together, because the reality, when we look at the polling, is that if Americans did not like the Biden policies, then she would not have been able to close the gap. The only real big difference, and I think Republicans are right about this, the only real difference that we've seen in the last 6 weeks is that there's a different messenger, but the message, or a lot of the policy points, a lot of them are the same. And as a result of the changing the messenger, we've seen it go from, the Democrats go from being 3 to 5 points behind to tied or ahead in the national polls, and then for the 6 or 7 swing states.
8 weeks to go, Fred. Thank you so much indeed, Fred Hicks.